All right, well, I tried, but I guess my sacred regalia needs a little work. To be fair, though, we do usually practice Skyclad. Don't worry, I know exactly who can help me out with this. Operator, connect me to Alexander Cabot. Welcome to Music, Myth, and Magic. I'm Eric Arcadian, and today I am speaking to Alexander Cabot, Reverend High Priest for the Cabot Kent Hermetic Temple in Salem, Massachusetts, and High Priest for the New York Coven of Witches. He's also the author of Touched by the Goddess, which is a forthcoming title, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Alexander, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Well, let's start at the beginning. I know you've got a ton of interesting stories from early in your life. How did you actually get started on your path?
Since I was a boy, has always been feminine divinity rather than the masculine divinity. Knowing that the feminine plays a huge role in our vibrational and material world that we live in this plane of existence. So I knew that the doctrines of the Abrahamic faiths were not alone, and that there was something else in the past. And it's sort of like a spiritual DNA. And I knew that I had to search and find these answers that were yearning to come out. I guess you do have certain, the soul carries information, it carries the past, history, and emotion. So that is part of consciousness. And so that when I teach, I tell people the consciousness is the soul, and that's what moves on. And of course, matter then evolves with matter, and in a vibrational and energetic field, obviously, and we as a being of mind and history and sentiments, all that is collective consciousness. Where does it go? It has to go back to its source or certain dimensions, like we've come to understand ideologic, theories of where these dimensions lie. One of the popular dimensions is that fifth dimension people talk about, and I would say that that's like the Summerlands for many Wiccans or pagans. That Summerland, that intermediate area that people are there for a purpose, a no man land in a way. So where we then later on evolve higher to the source.
So what was maybe one of your earliest magical experiences? Because I feel like in your book you talk about a lot of sort of like occult teachings that were taught to you as a child.
Well, I come from an interesting family, and the dichotomy of having the Abrahamic faiths, when it comes to Catholicism, but Catholicism is like dressed up or Christianized version of paganism in a way. So Catholicism was on a facade because of family, of society, and so forth. But my parents were free thinkers. My parents, obviously, that Freemasonry ideology that they carried on through generation and generation. My grandparents, my and father and mother also. My mother was the daughter of the Eastern Star. So that ideology of fraternity, of brethren, of ceremonial magic was so present in their way of thinking. And so, of course, that was passed on to me. It sparked my own incarnated soul, yo encarcelado, as we say in Spanish. So it's the incarnated soul that it sparked that yearning for more, because I had previously had followed that occult teachings, or I was a practitioner, many practitioners before me. So this is a way for me to understand chronologically as a child, and absorbing all this knowledge through and luckily I had these parents that were free thinkers, and they were not based on tenets or dogmas as most families are, and they don't think beyond the box. They're pretty much set in their own way of thinking, and that paradigm could cause harm, could be unhealthy. So letting someone who has their own evolution, a young person, letting them gradually think beyond that box and search for more and understanding and find their own balance within religion, spirituality, and intellectual, academia. That's something that we all search for, as we evolve, as we grow through young adulthood to becoming a full-fledged adult, and then elderly.
Speaking of young adulthood, I think I'm not sure how old you were, but at some point you had like one of Crowley's books hidden away in your closet, right?
Yes,
you said you were a closet witch.
It was naughty of me to have it, because his stigma, his controversial stigma that he had, being an occultist, 20th century, one of the most famous 20th century occultists, but also being the Rasputin of the occult world, because he dove himself into the dark. He really, that's why when I was developing my book, I wanted to pay homage to him, because at an early part of his life, he does profess and revere the female divinity, which has been always dear to me. And so if it was, he showed me that reverence towards high magic, ceremonial magic, and also to the female divinity. So I'm very grateful that I was able to do so, and nothing is coincidence, because when I was stuck in Brazil due to the pandemic. That's a long story, but I was stuck there, and I was with a very good friend of mine, Susan Marie Paramore, and little did I know that her son is a Crowley. I've been corrected by the Brits so many times. So Crowley, and that's how I was able to get him to write a special work of his own history, his biography, to my book. And so Aaron Paramore was instrumental in doing that. So that's why the book is my life story, but then it has a great biography on someone who is a lifelong expert, and who has been on the media and has reenacted the ritual at the pyramid as well. He's an amazing man. Kudos to him. So he was able to write specific work of Crowley for my book.
Well, that's amazing. I think you said that Crowley visited you in a dream?
Yes. So in the first part of that chapter, it's me talking. So the first part is my voice, and it is his manifestation in my dream, where he came in period clothing, And I knew that it was not a dream per se, with, you know, uh, collective consciousness, you know, how we void the subconscious, how we void certain, uh, things that go on, issues that go on throughout the day. We kind of voice them out and vent them out through our subconscious in the dream. But this was so real that he was in period clothing looking at me, and telepathically, not moving his mouth, but telepathically, he was conversing. He was conveying his message of gratitude, knowing that I was going to create this chapter based on his life, and having Aaron Paramore, excuse me, to contribute to it. And I woke up and I was elated. It was an epiphany. Right away, I knew that it was correct. What I was doing was correct. Having this controversial figure in my book, so it gives the reader a perspective on not being scared of the dark. And fear is what limits us. And so it is important to have a broad, and know that Satan, which is a Hebrew word meaning adversary, and Satan that we have today, is mere construct of the Abrahamic ideology. And yes, there is the positive and there is the negative, but we need to not limit ourselves with fear, and know how to use it in balance, be responsible for it. So that's why I have this proverb or a saying that, be a light unto darkness, so you may be the balance of the universe. It is my motto of teaching people not to limit themselves with fear, and know that they, be in control with their own stand on moral ethics and ideology and faith. That's another component that people need to know. Faith is very important too. It can move mountains, but it's within here, the psyche.
Well, that was a beautiful saying that you just mentioned. And I guess Crowley's just one of your influences. You have the Masonic influences. You have some ATR influences, and you have all of these different traditions here that you've been a part of.
The ATRs are, is that where we're going to? The ATRs now?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. The ATRs are important because they're based on my culture, my native culture. So I'm Cuban. I'm a refugee. I was brought to this country by my parents. My mom first. My father had to serve military time in Cuba before he was able to have the permission to leave. So we were sponsored by our grandfather, his father, and my grandfather lived in Queens, New York, and he was the one who sponsored all of us. So we came to this country. I'm a refugee, political refugee. So we came to this country and acclimating. I had my admiration towards my parents, because for them to come and not know the language and not know the culture and to acclimate themselves, it's huge. It's a huge turn of living and adaptation to that situation. And so I had it easier. Obviously, I came when I was a baby. I was 16 months old. I was a toddler, and so I was able to adapt quicker and be receptive towards the lexicon. So I had Spanish at first, and then English, and then sometimes I think Spanish and talk English, and it gets mumbled, or it's not the right concept that I wanted to say. But that's part of being bilingual, and also about maybe let's say since 2003, I've been going to Brazil, and I've adapted, and it's been easier for me because of my uh, uh, fluency in Spanish and Castilian. So I was able to learn and adapt to their culture as well for Brazil. So the ATRs do play an important part because of culture. And I had certain spirit guides that led me to, as a young boy, to Palo Mayombe. It's based from the Congo, and it's a Creole tradition based from Congo, Africa, and it's basically necromancy and dealing with the dead and using the practice of it was sort of like kimbisa in Brazilian, and it's black magic. It's dark. It could be dark, but they infused it with Christianity and then became to do good, to heal, to serve as a guidance. So from we have a proverb in Spanish, no hay mal que por bien no venga, meaning from bad, good derives. And so this was a wonderful way that an old African tradition was able, the diaspora of it was able to then become good for the community. That's Palo Mayombe. And then the second is the Santeria, which is Lukumi, which is the Cuban diaspora of Yoruba in Nigeria. And so this was a way for me to dive into the practice and become initiated with that tradition that I hold dear to my heart.
Which came first for you?
Palo Mayombe.
Yeah. Okay.
Palo Mayombe. First was the exposure, not no because I was so young. The exposure because of my parents with Freemasonry. Then came Aleister Crowley, and witchcraft per se, the BTW, and the understanding of it with writers such as Gardner himself. Sybil Leek was fabulous as I was growing up. Diary of a Witch was one of my favorite books as a child, and Doreen Valiente. So these authors gave me the opportunity to see that revolution of modern day witchcraft becoming to what we have it today, Wicca. And so that played a huge portion. And then, of course, I went into Palo Mayombe and its whole practice because of a very close friend. And in the book, in that chapter, it's the whole story. And it is a fantastic tale because it's a colorful character who was close to a very important author in America, which was Ernest Hemingway. And he lived the tail end of his life in Cuba. And so the whole chapter is based on his story, how he told me as a child, and all the different detailed aspects of it. And so I'm very proud. I had to out of respect, I went to the family because the sisters are the only ones, the sister and one brother are still living. And I asked them permission to use them in my book, especially for that chapter of Papache, which is so dear to me because it was part of my development in the ATRs. And then second is spiritual. Then after that would be spiritualism. Spiritualism, the Creole. It was the Creole version of spiritualism in my native country of Cuba. So this gave me a way to see the practice or the ritualistic practice of Cuba in its diaspora, but in the United States. A lot of it has been lost because of communism. As you know, the doctrine of communism eradicates religion or any type of religious ideology. So a lot of it has been saved with the exodus of us Cuban Americans. And so I was in its core, in its grassroots of spiritualism at a time in the 70s and 80s, where it was not so commercialized. I have to say that it was beautiful. Community at large, and the purity of community and doing what's right, the development of psyche, of mediumship, that was unbelievable at the age of 15. And so that what gave me introduction and gave me the development of my own abilities as a medium, and also going on to being initiated and a coronation, as they call it, a spiritual coronation, where the one is indoctrinated into the temple and into the practice of spiritualism. And of course, one of the academic books that are used, or the evangelic studies of Allan Kardec, played a very huge portion. So his branch of spiritualism is spiritists. So he played an instrumental part, because you needed to read on this great persona of France, who gave way to the development of the Victorian era of spiritualism, of his own branch called Spiritist.
So how did you find your way from all of this eventually to the Cabot tradition?
The Cabot tradition is something that I wanted to revere my Celtic heritage. And I knew that Laurie has grown. Laurie Cabot, with popularizing and being a trailblazer in Salem, and being such a huge persona within witchcraft and modern day witchcraft, I've always had so much respect for her, reverence. And so she was instrumental in seeing her, I've seen her development from Egyptian to now what it is, Celtic mythology. And that's what the Cabot tradition is based on, Celtic mythology. So I knew about that. I knew about the Hermetic principles that she always professed. And that little modern day book by the three initiates, which one of them is Paul Foster Case, who's a 20th century occultist. And so that book, Kybalion, whatever, however you want to pronounce it, is a wonderful book that gave way to now the ideology in the early 2000s of The Secret. And why that book is so important, because I had a fascination with Egyptian or Kemetic mythology. Isis as I revered every single historical goddess, Isis was so huge on my persona that she's manifested several times in my life. And so one of the times that she did, she came to me and she spanned her wings and she bowed down, and then telepathically, that's how I know that it is a true epiphany or manifestation, spiritual manifestation. They telepathically start conveying. And so she directed my attention to the green tablet of Hermes. And it glowed. That tablet itself glowed like if it was radiation, but it was green. And I saw Arab writing on it, and I knew that it was legit, legit tablet per se. And she distracted me from looking at her and viewed, and then it shifted my eyes towards the green tablet of Hermes. Then I found myself in Petra, riding on a horse, all in white, Arab attire, and I was just in total awe of it all. And then I read the book, of the Kybalion, having prior history of the Greek Hermeticism, but not in full understanding because I was so young. And then the little blue book of the Kybalion. And so that gave me an opportunity to know that, wow, this is what she wanted me to see. This is what she wanted me to absorb at an early age, this knowledge of Hermes Trismegistus and the green tablet of Hermes and the seven principles, which is our own interpretation. Because apparently the Arab scriptures differs from but it amounts to the same, and that's part of the occult sciences that we have today. That's a portion of it. There's much more to it as well. So what else? I've gone into such passion with one key component of history, but what was it that you were trying to about Laurie Cabot?
Yeah, well, I saw your ritual at Summer Magick. It was I believe it was titled like a Cabot family summer ritual or something along those lines. And I found it fascinating. I really enjoyed the ritual. It differed a little bit from, my tradition. I'm Gardnerian. And I was
Absolutely.
just wondering if you could speak to some of those points as to what maybe stands out about the Cabot tradition and kind of sets it apart a little bit.
Okay. So meeting Laurie in 1986, knowing about her own development, evolution of her own spirituality, and of course creating the Cabot tradition, which is America's own tradition based. It's based, obviously, everything is in humanity. It's like a link. So from the Sumerians to the Egyptians, the Greek, the Romans, everything is a chain reaction. And so the BTWs, and then of course in America having her own tradition. So it's her interpretation and her own structure of the Cabot tradition, giving way reverence to the Celtic lore. And so I wanted to pay homage. That's one of the things. Also, my correlation with her with Hermeticism, that lured me into being part of her tutelage, and then becoming, which this summer will be 10 years for me, becoming a ordained minister in her temple and a high priest, initiated high priest within her tradition. So At Summerfest, what you saw was a summer solstice um, being performed by me, and it was we start at the north, with the quadrants, and the circle first of all, Geossel, and then Wittishin at the end. Um, but it's done three times, and then the quadrants with the quarters. It's done in the north, east, south, and west. Basically, Gardnerian. You start at the east, south, west, and north. Obviously, correct.
Yeah, that's
And
correct.
so,
I think we have
yeah,
different elemental assignments for each of the
correct,
directions too.
correct, yeah. But in the same structural energetic path, it's based on that. And so her reasoning at the north is because the north is sort of like the commencement or reference to the gods and goddesses, to the element of earth where we reside, on the plane of existence that we're in. So that first, and then of course second, because the sun rises in the east, and so the sun is based on that plasmatic, energy, that fire, and then of course south is air, and water is west. So you saw the ritual done in a Cabot tradition fashion. And then one of the things that I love that people join in with was the cone of power. And one of the things that I've done abroad and I've done at home as well, the cone of power, where we resonate our voices and percussion with drum or with our hands, elevating that vibration, building up that frequency to cast our intent. And so our intent at that time were words of wisdom, of compassion. So wisdom, compassion, balance, love, harmony, joy. So all that, people were fascinated, and they join in the fun of yelling out these certain markers or these certain words that play as music does. It plays that frequency, it plays that vibration that we use many uh, in many religions, and it's so important. Yes, music is such a key element of spirituality. You have it in Christianity. You have it in when they chant in the Quran, in Islam. You have it in Judaica as a cantor. A cantor would sing like a bard in Druidism would sing as well. So you have all that, and that creates a vibrational frequency to to cast our intent out onto the universe for balance, for healing, for whatever it might be.
Now, if I recall correctly, I think we were yelling out um, things that we wanted to manifest kind of for the benefit of the rest of the world.
For the solstice.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. It was a way for everyone to discharge their anxieties, frustrations, and just expel onto the universe at that vibrational, because that's what helps bring it up to the source, the universe itself, and be corrected in order for it to come back to bless us, to heal us, and then we unconditionally take that and heal the earth. We take that same energy to have reverence towards our earth, our home, and then salute again.
Yeah, it was a beautiful ritual. I really liked that. Um, magical working part of it.
Thank you.
I will come back to this because we're almost talking about the signature question, but we're not quite there yet. So I'll come back to this concept. But just going into the Cabot tradition a little bit more, you are actually an ambassador for the tradition, correct? So what does that mean?
I humbly accepted it because it was dear to my heart, which is Brazil. And what happened was that the Reverend Mother, she's up there in age and she's pretty much sedentary. Um, she cannot make appearances, and so she relied on me because of my history with Brazil, and it goes way back to 2003 when I was as a surgical assist. I went to Brazil with my surgeon, with my boss at the time, to the surgical symposium, and we operated in Santos, and it was filmed, it was aired. At that time, we didn't have the technological recordings that we have today, and it was more sophisticated when they used to do it live. So it was live at Maxude Plaza, which is an old hotel. It's from the 70s, where the Rolling Stones and so many other personalities used to go to stay in Sao Paulo. And so it was aired there. So we operated, and Brazil became so hospitable, and I felt I love its vibration. I love its magic. It was amazing opportunity for me to meet certain people, and I met this wonderful family who are Spaniards. They're Castilians, and their son and daughter, they're both brothers, and one of the daughters were born in Brazil. So they're Brazilian from Spaniards, from Castilians, and so they spoke Spanish and they spoke Portuguese, and it was a way for me to. I felt so at home, and they were so loving, and instantly we became friends. And so now, 20 years after, we are still friends, and they are my Brazilian family. And so I go back, and I always stay with them, and they are part of my world and my life and my love. And so she knew the importance of Brazil in my life, and there was a an opportunity for someone to go, and she chose me at the same time that I was being ordained and initiated. And she asked me, and Penny, her daughter, asked me if I would do this. And I said, definitely. And she says, we will make you an official representative for Brazil. So they gave me documentation, a certification for me to have just in case if, we always have naysayers out there. So she made it official that I was the main representative for Brazil. And so later on, the ambassador type of function was my first part of my ministry. And that then gave way to Latin America and gave way to England as well. And so today, 10 years after, I see what I've created, this role of an ambassador for America's own tradition, the Cabot tradition. And yes, I do have a history. I am a member of the NY Coven of Witches. I am an initiated a High Priest Gardnerian, New York Wicca, and as well as the Welsh. Back from 1995 with the great High Priestess or Witch Queen, as she's been colloquialized by the New York Times, Lady Rhea. And so she played a huge instrumental, role in for me to understand what Wicca was. She was one of the pioneers when the whole revolution of Wicca was in New York with Herman Slater and Eddie Basinski, the Magical Child. Of course, she and Carol Berzone created enchantments, and so I've been. It's been a 30-year or over a 30-year long friendship that I have had. She's like my family, and so I hold her dear to my heart, and I've been a member of the New York Coven of Witches since then.
So I have to say one thing, jumping back to the summer magic ritual, one thing I noticed was that you have possibly one of the most badass sets of magical regalia that I've ever seen on another person. So if you could run through and kind of give a quick synopsis of what you've got on. Yep, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, for people who don't know, my book is currently unavailable because I fell out of sorts with the publisher in England. It was time for me to cut ties with them, and I have moved on. I thought that I would do self-publishing like I've done for Lady Rhea, both in her Enchanted Candle and Enchanted Formulary. But I was pursued and solicited by a publisher, which actually you'll be the first one, because I have not posted this. You'll be the first one to know that in February 29th of this year, I signed the contract with Schiffer Publishing, a 50-year-old publisher from Pennsylvania. They've been after me. They have a branch, imprint, as they call it. It's a branch of esoteric or metaphysics, which is called Red Feather. And so I am falling under that imprint, under Schiffer Publishing. And my second edition of it will now not be Memoirs of a High Priest, but it will be just, it won't be Touched by the Goddess. It will be just Memoirs of a High Priest. I stand corrected. And so this book now will be stylized, and I have since then I've been writing new editions while I am in the trenches of going into work, and I'm amazed how much I've written. And at this moment, actually, I have my editor, David Moore, who's editing all those editions and placing them in several of the chapters. And so the book is going to be more than what I've expected. It's now evolving into this occult book. I never thought that Red Feather, Schiffer Publishing, wanted it so badly. They loved my work. I was able to modify the contract to my own needs and wants, and they were willing to do so. And I was so happy that they is fascinated with my work, my literary work. So now the book will be stylized in a hardcover. It's going to you heard it first here on this podcast. So this is the first edition, and the second edition will be out fall of 2025.
Perfect.
Through Schiffer Publishing and its imprint of Red Feather. So the regalia, as we call it, the frock, it is designed by Laurie Cabot. It is what she wanted for her tradition and for her ministry, her clergy to have. And so it is the usual black frock, but it's in a more of a Renaissance looking with the long sleeves. And of course the red, which red, black, and white are the colors of the Cabot tradition. And you have here the second degree patch. You have the Cabot Kent Hermetic Temple patch. And you have third degree patch here, which is the triquetra of the goddess and reverence towards the goddess. So this is the shield or sigil. They call it the Cabot crest. And so the Cabot crest to the left is the cat, and to the right is the crow. So it's the Cabot, the cat, the crow, the crown, which was one of her great stores in Salem at the time. So that and the sword is an Excalibur from Toledo, Spain. The sword itself, what this scabbard is one of a kind. Actually, I don't think it was done by a gentleman in Salem who does leather works, and he created it for the Cabot tradition and for my ceremonial sword. And so when we were thinking about the cover of the book, I was thinking more about the goddess, but the publisher wanted a picture of me in the whole Cabot Regalia to be featured on the book, and I'm pretty modest, and I didn't want to. So for those that think that I'm conceited and I wanted to be on the book, no, it wasn't. It was actually the publisher themselves. And so the crown was made by a Gardnerian, High Priestess, and it is the third degree, the stag, the High Priest of the God crown. And this pin here was done before I was a Cabot, even a Cabot priest. Not even thinking about going into becoming a high priest. So the crest, the moon crest, is actually my own moon phase at my birth, which was called the old moon. It's a waning crescent, and on it is in Theban, blessed be. And the tartan. There's two more. That wonderful shield of a pendant, and of course the tartan. The tartan is the royal steward, and what she wanted was the link of Scotland and England itself because of the royals, because that's the last tartan linking up with Scotland, which is the royal steward. And the pendant, it was created by my dear friend David Moore and editor. He wanted a shield of protection, as he knew that I would be in the public eye. So each weaving of copper and metal is done with a spell. He had it commissioned, and it went through many months of work casting each weave of copper and metal to fit his recommendation of protection and balance and correctness. He wanted me to have that stability for the public and for the community, to serve well for the community. So that pendant I hold dear to my heart, and I wear it every time I wear my robe. I guess that is complete.
Well, thank you for explaining all of that. I love all of it. I think it looks fantastic. I think what you just said was that The official colors of the Cabot tradition are red, white, and black.
Red, black, and white.
Right. So, what is the explanation behind those three color choices?
Well, the black, because for her, it encompasses all colors. The black is universal. As you see in many denominations, they wear black robes. So that is the basic. And then the red, because it's part of the Cabot tradition. The red is you know is life. It's blood. Um, the word I'll give you a little trivia. The word blood is listed in more times in the Bible than the word God. And blood is a essence of life. That's why some people use blood as a quick fix because it has that energetic or specific, with DNA. So blood is that essence that gives strength to any spell or magic ritual that may be doing, that someone may do. So red, and then white for its purity, white for also spirit, white for goddess, God, balance, all that it encompasses. So the red, black, and white, it's those. You could even see it on the crest. If you let me see if I have something here. No, I don't. But in its okay, this is the patch, a third for a it's the temple patch. Once someone becomes a member, once you go on the Cabot Kent Hermetic Temple.org temple website, you can become a member. They gift you a temple patch, and so these have the elements. It has the Ankh for eternity, for the Egyptian symbol of eternity and protection, which she started out. She was a devotee to Isis and to the pantheon of in her early years of the 70s to Egyptian mythology, which we call today Kemetic magic. And of course, the triquetra in the center it embodies female divinity, the goddess herself.
Well, I love the show and tell, and I like the explanation of the colors. I had my own suspicion, but what you explained was different. So I'm glad I asked. I'm glad you
Absolutely.
explained all
That's
that.
why I'm here.
So I know that you have done ritual a lot of different places. I know that you speak multiple languages, and I'm wondering how you feel language has had an impact on the type of magic that you do or the type of ritual that you do.
Absolutely. I think that the lexicon and its vibrational frequencies are important to any practitioner because sometimes practitioners will use spells in different languages. So you have Arabic, you have Latin, you have Welsh, you have the Gaelic, not only the Scottish, the Welsh and the Irish. So I see that people use lexicon in their own trajectory of and projecting its magic onto the universe with that sort of um, language. The idiom is very important to us. That's how I'm conveying that, our magic, our message in a beta brainwave. And so when you're casting a spell, let's say, or you're doing a cone of power, which I did, it was in English, but yet that trajectory of magic, of energy. We are doing it in English, and you're using emotions, you're using passion. That's where music comes. That music plays a huge portion in any denomination. As you know, Abrahamic faiths or chanting in Buddhist or Hinduism plays that role of projecting its needs, its wants, its desires, and helping, with communal energies. So music is a huge component, and I believe that music is spiritual. And to this day, even in Gardnerian, right? There's certain chants. There's certain chants. I won't say any more, but because I don't want to break my vows. But there is certain chanting that goes on that creates that cone of power, and that's musical to our ears.
Yeah,
and that's so important for any practitioner in today's world.
Okay, we're gonna come back to this again as this signature question. It's kind of my thing. I have to ask it, even if you've already answered it earlier. But before we get to that, I do want to hear a little bit more about where people can find you. So if somebody was looking for you online, how can they find you? And also, where are you going to be soon if somebody wants to find you in person?
Okay. I have exciting news. I will be leaving for Brazil in September for my birthday, which I'm Mabin baby. I was born on the autumn equinox. Happy harvest. And so I just got word from the publisher in Brazil. My book is already translated. They're going through the aesthetics of formatting, which is the original, the first edition, Memoirs of a High Priest, Touched by the Goddess. So that book is now going to be available in Portuguese, and it's a Andrade Publishing, and its owner is Claudine Prieto, and so he's a Gardnerian under Deborah Lipp, I believe.
Okay,
and so he's now publishing my book and Lady Rhea's book, The Enchanted Candle. So those two, we unfortunately, the Lady Rhea can't go. Certain commitments that she has in New York, and so I will be representing her as well as myself to go to Brazil and being part of this huge Brazilian conference and symposium where my book will be initiated and have the opportunity for people to buy in Portuguese. So that's the first. That's the next trip that I'll be making. I am going to Schiffer Publishing. Whoever is invited for their 50th anniversary soiree that is being done at their headquarters in PA. Schiffer Publishing has invited me to come for their anniversary soiree, and I will do so. That's August the 3rd. And what else am I doing? I'm doing anyone who is interested in coming to Witch Fest USA, which is every year at Astor Place in New York City. I will be making my appearance and also teaching a little workshop called Tea Time with the Cabot Tradition, which is the development, it's the history of Salem, Laurie Cabot, the tradition, and myself. So That's going to be done at Witch Fest USA, I believe, in the middle of July. Check. You could contact me. There is several, or you could go on Witch Fest USA. Star Ravenhook is the organizer and owner of this event. And that's going to be, I believe it's July 17th, but don't take my word on it. I have so much on my mind, especially with the deadline I have with the publisher at this present time. So that's pretty much what I have in the works for the summer and for September. Anyone who wants to reach out, and if they want to seek my own love and light, and or my own, tune into my own teachings, I do so free of charge. I always guide. If you need my as a counselor, I'm here for the public. As Eddie Basinski would always say, we serve the community. And I'm here as a minister, as a teacher, as an author, and as a human being, as a fellow human being too. And my religion is not only Wicca. It's my religion is love and humanity. And you could contact me through all the social medias, or primarily through AlexanderCabot.com. It's my website with all my information, and through there you could actually there are icons that you could go to your platform, social media platform of choice, which is X, formerly known as Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. I have it all. I also did a contribution. Let me say, I have it right here, which is great. I have a dear friend, we have a dear friend, which is Ivo Dominguez Jr., as you know. And this is Virgo Witch. It's my own little contribution to his work, of his series of astrological series that he did for Llewellyn. And I was very touched that he reached out more than a year ago to ask me if I would contribute to Virgo Witch, as well as Lady Rhea to Leo Witch. And so we did, and it's on my website to help out with his project. It's a series, and for anyone who loves astrological signs and who identifies with Wicca and witchcraft, this is a wonderful series that you should own your own sign or the whole series. It's fabulous what they did. This is quite clever of Evo.
It's an amazing series. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I will post links to that. I'll post links to your publisher, to all your social media links, and your website. So if anybody is looking for learning more about Alexander Cabot, all you have to do is click below in the description. So now, Alexander, we have gotten to the final question, the signature question. We may have talked about it earlier. How do you use sound or music in your personal magical practice?
Just like I said, music is universal. Music, everybody identifies with music. You don't have to know the language to know its meaning. It identifies individually. So it's individualistic, and it's also spiritual. So music plays a huge portion. Every denomination has used, music throughout, history, as we know, from the Sumerians, Egyptians, the Greeks and Romans, and of course the Second Roman Empire, which is the Byzantine, we know that music has played a huge portion of humanity, of spirituality, of love, and so even in Wicca, it is used. We use certain chanting that is traditional in Garnerian, Alexandrian, where this brings the frequency, the vibrational frequency. We go back to its principles in Hermeticism, being one of the principles of vibration, frequency, where, even on a subparticular level, when nowadays we have physicists with the contemplation of the science of opportunity, where, as they call it, which is quantum physics or quantum mechanics, we have this frequency where on a molecular structure or a subparticular level, where molecules or these fragments do vibrate on a special frequency, creating or reproducing even its unit of life, which is a cell. It does have that vibrational frequency, and so even in science, we know that is important. And in spirituality or our traditions, which is religion, and I profess again, religion is man-made. Religion is just our mere interpretation of spirituality. And so whatever you are focused on, what resonates with you, what you gravitate towards, what brings passion to faith, there is music. And music is that core element or energy that we use today in humanity, in language. It joins us in unity, in communal energy. And so that's so important that in my practice or anyone's practice, music is a force to be reckoned with.
I love it.
Does that answer your question?
I love it. Absolutely, it does. That was beautiful. Thank you for that answer.
And also, I have to say, I'm developing a workshop called Celestial Beings, and you're the first one to know. It's a which I will be showcasing it on WitchCon next year, and it's a workshop where I teach people of the symbolism of the guardian angel and our celestial being that we are born with, that guides us. There are spirit guides, but they're also that specific specific being of light that is with us since we are born on this plane of existence. And that's a personal ideology. Some may differ, but others may relate to it. And so even in Christianity, and so that's the whole the concept of my workshop, is to teach people the history of this celestial being that has been interpreted throughout Islam, Judeo-Christian ideology, and also with its modern adaptation of, its interpretation of witchcraft as well. And so this workshop I'm creating, and my dear friend, things happen for a reason. There's no coincidence. It's amazing, because 2 years ago I went to England to her studio. She lives in Salisbury, England, where Stonehenge is, in Wiltshire. I'm pronouncing that wrong. You bloody Americans. It's not Buckingham, it's Buckingham. So I get a kick out of that. And so she was instrumental because I told her about my guardian angel novena that I've had since I was 15. It was given to me. It's an unknown author, and it was given to me, and I've used it ever since in my whole life. And it's such a beautiful novena, which is 9 times prayer or even spell, but it is a I mention, I recite this novena in this audio, which actually it's become sort of like a narrative song, or I would say a meditative song. And it will be available for the public. And so you guys are hearing it first. It is done. I have Susan Marie Paramore in the background singing the Guardian Angel song while I narrate, or in the citation, I narrate the whole prayer, the whole novena of the Guardian Angel in English and Spanish. The next one will be Portuguese for my Portuguese speaking public. And so I can't wait to share that with you all. It's beautiful. It is just unbelievably beautiful with the song in the back, her own song. So it becomes such a ethereal way of concentrating on your own guardian angel, and I will be including it within my workshop. I'm so Latin, right? I actually convey and talk with my hands. Very Italian, but no, it's part of the Latin upbringing.
Well, that sounds really fascinating. And whenever you have a link for that, I would love to share it.
Yes, I have not. We just finished it. I was in Nashville, Tennessee for Oberon. I went to explore Tennessee, and I went to Oberon Zell's wedding. I was invited to his beautiful wedding out in Knoxville, and it was done that same weekend, and I was beside myself. I couldn't believe how beautiful it was, and my voice. She loved the fact that I'm narrating it, and they used me in England. They used me for some play. I don't know where that's going to, but I remember working on uh, a playwriter's portion that I had to narrate that he wanted me to use my voice for. So I did that, but at the same time we created um, the Guardian Angel novena, and then she placed her own song over it, and now it's just phenomenal.
Wonderful. I can't wait to hear it.
I'll share it personally with you.
Okay.
You'll be the first one
All right.
to listen to it.
All right, Alexander, I think we've kind of hit our time here. So I've really enjoyed our conversation. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with me today. And
thank you for having me. It was a pleasure meeting you. I remember being in the VIP room with you at Summerfest. It was great.
Always a good time up there.
And being there for me at for your love and your support, you and your wife, your love and support at my class, and as well as my ritual.
Always happy to give you our support. Can't wait to see you again in the future.
Likewise.
All right, I'll go ahead and end our call here, and wish you a wonderful rest of your day.
Goodbye. Thank you so much. Blessed be.
Blessed be. Another big M3 thank you to Alexander Cabot for taking the time to be on the show with me today. If you haven't already checked him out or looked into the Cabot Tradition, go ahead and click one of the links in the video description below. Please remember to like and subscribe here on YouTube. It might not seem like a very big deal to you, but it makes a huge difference to me. You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Eric Arcadian, but you can also find exclusive content like music or videos over on my Patreon page, which also has the added benefit of helping me make more videos like this in the future. That link, along with all the others, will be in the video description below. Remember, there's always a way to make music. Until next time.